はい、皆様、本日はお忙しいところお集まりいただきましてありがとうございます。私、RRI の中島と申します。本日の司会進行を務めさせていただきます。よろしくお願いいたします。で、まず最初にですね、先ほども表示、ログイン待ちといいますか、開始待ちのところに表示しておりましたが、リモートで入られている方に、お願いがございます。音声はミュートにしておいていただきますようにお願いいたします。あと、ビデオですね、オフにしていただきますようにお願いいたします。あと、日本語と英語、本日は同時通訳ということで、両方で聞けるようになっておりますので、WebEX の下の画面の方からですね、選択いただいて、日本語でも英語でも選んでいただければと思います。モバイルで入られている方も、この下の方にガイドがありますので、音声を選択いただくようにお願いいたします。それとですね、今日は後半に Q&A セッションがございます。Q&A セッションの時にですね、質問を皆様からもいただきたいと思っておりますので、チャット欄にですね、ご質問を記入いただければこちらの方でピックして取り上げたいと思いますのでよろしくお願いいたします。あと会場の皆様ですね、レシーバー本日用意しております。あちらの方に、チャンネル1、チャンネル2ということで、日本語、英語を選べるようになっておりますので、設定いただいて使っていただければと思います。あと本日の模様はですね、録画をしております。で、後日ですね、広告ということで、公開する予定にしておりますので、その旨ご了承いただければと思います。はい、それではですね、セミナーの方に入っていきたいと思います。で、今日はですね、欧州で取り組みが進んでいる自動車業界のデータスペース、Catena-X ですね。Catena-X からボードオブディレクターのハーゲンさん、あとクラウスさんに来ていただきました。で、本日はですね、Catena-X の紹介、大きなところから紹介を始めていただいて、あと現在位置、あと将来に向けてのプランですとか、そういったところを語っていただきたいなと思っております。で、本日の立て付けですけれども、前半はプレゼン、で、後半は Q&A セッションということで、それぞれ約45分間をめどに進めていきたいと思っておりますので、よろしくお願いいたします。それではですね、プレゼンの方、キーノートの方に入っていきたいと思います。ハーゲンさん、クラウスさん、よろしくお願いいたします。
よろしくお願いします。Hello, everybody. I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So it's a pleasure actually for Catena-X on behalf of the board of Catena-X to present today at RII. It's really a big honor, and we'd like to give you an overview about Catena-X, everything, what is the basic idea, the use cases, how we work together, and what is the intention of our initiative.
Aren't the questions we ask ourselves today more important than ever? What can we learn from nature? Why don't we make new cars out of old ones? How do we use our networks, technologies, and people for positive change? What does a perfect cycle actually look like? The world is connected, from the smallest of cells to gigantic ecosystems. But if everything is related to everything, how do we then embrace complexity? How do we enable flow of data for better products and services? How do we guarantee sovereignty and interoperability? How do we ensure security and fair collaboration for all? Our answer? Catena-X, the first open and collaborative data ecosystem. A system with infinite solutions for the challenges of our time. A global marketplace where everyone can create and share applications. Because true innovation only works when we work together. Catena-X creates data flow along value chains. Here, all participants can share data directly, without an intermediary. At Catena-X, information, such as raw materials and their origin, is secure and traceable, so that everyone benefits sustainably from innovations. Catena-X relies on legally tested solutions and standards, an environment with clear rules and guardrails. The network of networks, in which you decide with whom and with which applications you exchange data, for maximum sovereignty and security. The solution for connected digital services and new business ventures for everyone, from global corporations to small local businesses. Through the flow of data and fair collaborations, we can face the challenges of the future together. Because the future starts when innovations and data flow. Because it starts when we take a leap of faith and pioneer. Because it starts when we share ideas and work together. Together, we are writing the code of the future, a future with new opportunities, a future for everyone. Because the world of tomorrow is the sum of the decisions we make today. Become a part of Catena-X and shape the future together with us. Catena-X, the first open and collaborative data ecosystem.
So, Catena-X, the first open and truly collaborative data ecosystem. And what we wanted to give you is a little bit of an impression. What is the vision of Catena-X and what are we standing for? And when you listen carefully to the video, you have recognized a couple of buzzwords where we say these are the real core important challenges in our industry and a little bit also in the current situation of the world. Resilience is one of the biggest ones. Sustainability, but also trust of each other. Topics like including small and medium-sized companies. And how do we want to work together? These are the core principles and also the core visions of Catena-X, where we came together from 1.5 years ago and said, there is something ongoing in the automotive industry where we really have a challenge. We all are facing the challenge and we're all sitting in the same boat. And if we're looking back and give you a little bit an overview how Catena-X started and what is the motivation, there are always these 4 core principles where we always said, this is why we want to start an initiative like Catena-X. First, resilience. You remember back 1.5, 2 years when we were at the first lockdowns during the Corona crisis. Of course, in the automotive industry, we were hit hard. Production plants were shut down, while on the other side, assembly lines on the OEM side were still producing. And we were seeing the first signs of lack of raw material, components, or even high-end, component products like semiconductors. And one thing was very remarkable. We are facing a clear challenge in the automotive industry of transparency for components along the complete value chain. From the fully assembled car all the way down to the raw material, it is simply not possible to have a visible view and a transparent view of the complete automotive value chain. And of course, this view is connected to data, the data which are flowing across the complete value chain. And yes, we're exchanging data already today in the automotive industry, but we always do it peer-to-peer. We never do it across the complete value chain. So this is a fundamental problem, how to ensure resilience and how to increase the transparency, something what we cannot and have not solved yet, and we needed a solution for that one. Second one, sustainability. One of the key features and one of the key requirements to an entire industry. And I hope we all agree that all of our companies are highly committed to the sustainability goals, what we have established within the nations all around the world. Topics like product carbon footprint. How do we measure in the future the CO2 footprint for the entire industry? Circular economy. the reusage of components at the end of the life cycle for cars. These are the pressing questions, and we all sitting in the same boat, and we need to solve these problems at the same time. And if you look actually at the challenge, how to solve the sustainability goals, what we have seen, it's the same approach. We need somehow to establish an end-to-end data value chain where we can assemble the different, I would say, areas for product carbon footprint, from a raw material or mill and mining company, the battery cells, the battery packs, and to the fully assembled car. And we can only achieve a holistic carbon footprint if we sum up all the different, I would say, stages or nodes across the value chain. So resilience and sustainability were two of the big motivations where we said we need to solve this and we need to tackle these challenges. Third big topic, geopolitics and innovation. We also very quickly, if you want to solve the resilience and the sustainability challenges, we need to truly enhance our way how we exchange data in the automotive industry. And data sharing and data exchange is a matter of trust and interoperability. Yes, we could have exchanged data in the past, and we're doing it before. But is there trust in the industry? For sure not. A lot of players in the automotive industry are thinking, if I'm sharing my data, I'm out of control. Someone will compromise the data. They will also steal our IPs, and they will also use the data for, let's say, at the next negotiation, also some, I would say, cost effectiveness and everything what's going around with it. So building a data ecosystem from an innovation perspective, if we would have built Catena-X 10 years ago, we would have proposed a centralized platform where all the industry players should connect to it and then just give up their data and we have something to exchange. This is not something what we achieve and wanted to tackle with Catena-X in the new age. To guarantee full data sovereignty, security, and interoperability, it is core crucial that we build a decentralized network. A decentralized network where each company is at any time at full control of the data, and you can decide who do I want to share, how do I want to share, and how long do I want to share. So decentralization with the core principles of Gaia-X and the International Data Space Association, these are the values what we preach there. And last but not least, it's a simple economic reason. A simple economic reason where we said, yes, all of our companies are facing these challenges. And you know, all of us, we can invest by ourselves and try to tackle these challenges and develop some solutions, some platforms, whatever. But at the end of the day, we all sit globally at the same boat. And we all have the same desire to say, let's work together jointly on an equal level, on eye level, to tackle these challenges, overcome that, and build the network of the future, where industry adopters and outfitters, OEMs, first-tier suppliers, second-tier suppliers, raw material companies, IT companies, OT companies are providing into the network. And we're working really on an industry data space which is secure, safe, and also a very collaborative environment to solve and tackle our solutions. So this was the vision for Catena-X. And we started, as I said, 1.5 years ago. And it was very clear from the beginning that if we want to do it in the right way, it's also not a small mission what we are tackling. Automotive is a huge industry. It was very clear from the beginning that Catena-X is a global initiative. It's not a German initiative. It's also not a European initiative. We are truly thinking global, and we are embracing all players of the automotive industry to join. If we're looking at the value chain, we're talking about more than 275,000 legal entities who are contributing to the automotive industry. We have hundreds and thousands of locations all around the world with multiple digital twins from fully assembled cars, battery packs, drivetrains, everything is thinking in different applications, software platforms, and millions of users who potentially using Catena-X in the future. And the core mission, one of the core principles, if you look to the right-hand side, was if you want to establish a data-driven value chain, there will not be one software platform dominating all these nodes in the value chain. Starting from the recyclers over the OEMs, the first tiers, and even down to the raw materials, there will be multiple solutions, let's be honest. And it's not the desire of one IT company to control, for example, all the value chain. It's the other way around. We really need to make sure that all the different software platforms and solutions can talk to each other. They need to be interoperable. And the way how they exchange data, they need to be secure, sovereign, and interoperable. So if you take the example here of sustainability, and if you really want to establish the product carbon footprint, we need to connect all these different platforms along the value chain and also make a way how to summarize and interact the different data for product carbon footprint. And in that case, it's a wonderful example where we said the industry can work together. We all share the same goal. We all share the same challenge. So Catena-X started as a true open and collaborative ecosystem. And what does it mean? Because when we had the first discussions, with a lot of companies in the automotive industry, we said, basically, we need to work on two major dimensions. First, we need to focus on technology and architecture. Catena-X was designed and has a clear commitment to be a delivery organization. We said, yeah, we can do nice architectures and nice concepts, but we definitely want to produce code and we want to deliver something to the industry where all companies and all players of the automotive industry can participate. This is our commitment to an entire industry to make our processes better and also to drive and deliver value. And if you look at the technology components, there are a couple of things which needs to be built. How do we interact with the data exchange, for example? How do we drive, for example, trusted handshakes between two companies? So we're really working on the standards, on the decentralization, and most of all, we are truly working also in a collaborative mode, proven by open source. A lot of the components, what we're using on the technology side, are built in an open source community, and every of the companies who are connected to Catena-X are delivering to this open source community, and everyone can extract and leverage the outcomes which will be produced from Catena-X technology-wise. On the other side, this is the working model. The working model which is defined from a perspective of OEMs, suppliers, tech companies, researching companies, recyclers, small and medium-sized companies, we're really working in Catena-X on eye level. There is not one company who is above another one. It's very important to understand from our perspective that each member of Catena-X has the same rights and has also the same delivery, I would say, obligations to prove in Catena-X. And this also counts not only from a characteristic of industry players, it also counts for regional versus global. We are really global organizations, and this is once again not a German nor a European, it's a global organization where we say all the same with the same place. So what does it mean? 1 year ago, we founded the association of Catena-X by itself, and we said that if you want to really kickstart and to build this data-driven value chain all the way from recycling to the raw material, we had 28 companies at the beginning who said, we kickstart the ecosystem, and really, we truly built the ecosystem by focusing on 3 main tasks, 3 main jobs, what we're currently doing. 1, we're building the core technology components for Catena-X by itself. We're building the trusted services, the infrastructure, the baseline services, the portal, the marketplace, everything what is relevant to use and leverage Catena-X by itself from a technology perspective. But technology at itself doesn't deliver value. We really need to focus on the compelling use cases. And the 28 companies agreed on 10 compelling use cases from the automotive industry, where we clearly have committed ourselves to deliver them and also to execute on a high level. And last but not least, we also said we're going to need to scale. We want to embrace everyone who is connected to the automotive industry as soon as possible. So scaling and onboarding companies, especially from the small and medium-sized companies all around the world, is our mission. So if we dig down now a little bit deeper into the use cases, you will find out that within the 10 use cases what we're currently working on, there are a couple of use cases which are truly fundamental. Fundamental in a way, everyone has the same challenge and we need to solve them first before we can build other cases. And the two use cases are all around the question, who am I in the automotive industry and who am I connected to? So first off, focusing on business partner management, and second, material traceability, where you can track and trace the parts from a fully assembled car over the first tier, second tiers to the raw material, and building this virtual data-driven value chain. These are the two main cases, what we said, we need to solve them and we need to build them. And then on top, of course, we have very compelling and I would say pressing use cases all around CO2 footprint tracking from the carbon footprint side, circular economy with the reusage of component, very, very important, especially for our industry, how we get better from a plastic and from a raw material perspective. Demand and capacity management, who is addressing one of the most challenging things around our semiconductor problem, what we're currently facing in the automotive, and also, of course, manufacturing and quality. Last but not least from my side, before actually we're going into a little bit of feeling how does Catena-X look like, this is a view on the very simplified architecture stack of Catena-X. And there are two remarkable things. On the left-hand side, you will see the architecture components of Catena-X divided in two major dimensions. First, in the orange boxes and in the orange sections, these are the technology core components, what we need, that enable a trusted, secure, and interoperable data exchange. Services like integration services, we call them an Eclipse data space connector, where all of the proprietary platforms and companies can connect to each other. Then can connect to each other and have this trusted handshake. And if we have this trusted handshake, we have a couple of shared data services where you can decide, who do I want to share data? How do I want to share data? And in which context do I want to share data? Really important. And these services, once again, they are part of the community and also the contribution to the industry, which means open source, shared value, shared outcome, everything on eye level. And on the top side, you see in the green layer a multiple set of business or network applications which needs to be addressed for the relevant use cases. Applications for CO2 footprint tracking, applications for demand capacity. And very important also from our side, these are multiple applications which are available to the market. And there will be not the one application from Catena-X and said, you need to use this or this application from a software provider. It will be a very diverse ecosystem in that area. So before if I hand over to my dedicated colleague, Claus, I would give you a very short impression from the minimal viable product how Catena-X looks like, and then we can dig a little bit deeper in the further actions and where to do. So what you see here at the beginning is a snapshot on how Catena-X does look and feel from a marketplace perspective, a central landing zone where I can find my applications, where I can connect to other industry players. I have a central registry for business partners where I can connect to other industry players. And if I want to connect to someone, you have this trusted handshake over the EDC connectors, what we're using in there. And beyond of that, there will be a central marketplace, what you see here, where all the different multiple applications are running, from parts traceability to sustainability to other logistics applications, everything in one box. And if you have the central components now in place, we can drive really business applications for digital twin registries, for parts traceability. What you see here is a snapshot of the digital twin registry of a fully assembled car, and we can track down now the fully assembled car through all the components, with the battery packs, the battery cells, the raw material with the lithium, and even further who is connected. And if I can build such a digital twin, I can create value chains. I can really see the relationships from the fully assembled car and track down now who are my suppliers, who is complaining, and who is actually delivering to my side. And I can have these virtual relationships in the data chain. So remember, these are the foundational elements of Catena-X. And on top, we really can build nice use cases for end of life cycle and circular economy, like dismantle a dashboard. This is a snapshot where at the end of the life cycle, I can really track down still a vehicle, how is the material composition from raw material with metals, but also plastics and different ones. And I can give actually the components of a car at the end of a life cycle back into the supplier cycle. Reusage of components is a really, really important thing. So this is just a little bit a preview to show you how does Catena-X look and feel, and a little bit more now in detail, what is the backstory of it and how actually we currently address on. This is something what I would like to hand over to Klaus.
Thank you very much, Hagen. Watashino, konnichiwa. Watashino namae.
My name is Claus.
So we also brought you an explanation now how Catena-X works, because it's very important that it's not owned by one company and it's not owned by any specific entity. It will be a global initiative, and we have to explain how this works. Imagine you are a car producer, in this case Volkswagen, could also be Toyota, Honda, Nissan. And imagine you want to share data with your supply chain. In that case, BASF is supplying chemicals. It's more on the long end of the supply chain. And you have to know each other. That's why we created Catena-X. In Catena-X, both companies get to know each other, get connected to each other, and the languages both companies speak in their specific systems and in their identities are connected via Catena-X. And Catena-X, in the orange box in the middle, is not a centralized, owned data space. It is the enabler for multiple data spaces, a decentralized system. And we also expect globally, everywhere on the earth, also here in Japan, we expect operator for Catena-X federated operating environments. And now let's go to the example. So Volkswagen or Toyota now knows about the supplier and wants to share data. But the data is not shared via Catena-X. The data is shared directly. This is new to the world. The direct data exchange enabled by Catena-X. And now it's just a data exchange. An FTP file, an Excel file just shared now, secure and trustful. But you want to make use of the data. You want to come up with great analytics, with amazing applications that calculate the product carbon footprint, for example. And there are different players having applications. For example, here are two companies offering applications to measure and manage the product carbon footprint. And both companies have now agreed to work together with those IT, OT providers for the measurement of product carbon footprint. And also these IT providers, these application providers, get connected to Catena-X. It's just an exchange of information about what is the application doing, how is the data calculated, and we all agreed on the standards to do this. And then, of course, the connection also is between those companies. And that makes the interoperability of Catena-X happen, right? The EDC connector is the core. Catena-X makes the language speak to each other, and then both applications can understand each other. And you can exchange the CO2 carbon footprint, which is really difficult to do. Of course, we will have small and medium companies, and this is the must-win battle for Catena-X also here in Japan market. Because the small and medium companies, maybe a company with only 100 employees and working with hard blood to build some components for a car, don't have a digitalization officer like large companies have. They really also need something to use. It must be easy to use, and that's why we believe there must be a provider to enable also small and medium companies. Could be Catena-X EDC as a service provider. And to make it even more ambitious, we of course expect open source applications make use of Catena-X. And this holistic ecosystem will afterwards create a huge marketplace for applications, and all the supply chain participants can make use of it. And this is just an example for applications for the product carbon footprint. The same mechanism works for all applications that Hagen mentioned on the site. We just started with the 10 use cases. There are many more. So we just initiate the big challenge to grow the first data ecosystem globally in the automotive supply chain. And like Hagen mentioned, the consortium with 28 members was founded in Europe so far. But already in the design of Catena-X, it's a global initiative. We have founded the association to be the core, to agree on standards, and later to certify what happens in Catena-X. Also to orchestrate the operating environment. I will show you what that means. Within the association, we already have lots of Asian companies, and it's still growing. That is also our mission here in Japan this week, to talk to the people, to talk to you, and to make you understand that it's a global initiative, and we need local adoptions. Let me show you this in a little more depth, because we need an open and balanced approach to build and run a global data ecosystem for the whole automotive society globally. Therefore, we created the association on top. The association right now is 104 members, and we are very proud to have lots of Japanese players already knocking on the door, wanting to understand what's happening with Catena-X for standardization, for certification, and creating the neutral governance, and plus thinking about how can we transfer Catena-X ideas into the small and medium companies into the world. On the lower side, you see the development environment. And of course, there's just the initial kickoff project created in Europe, but designed on the values of open source, designed by use cases, but there's enough space and there is enough need for more to develop. The operating environment is, you see, there's no bubble is filled already. It will start by end of the year, and the target is to really grow fast, because we have the challenge right now. So we develop things, open source, and then we operate it, and we expect that the operation will also be done locally. But first we need the association on the first level to be a club of all companies, where we all agree on the standards, where we all work together in working groups. And I can tell you from heart, these working groups really have to work. There's no listeners in there. We just go for it, and it's sharp and clear. And we like to interact there internationally, and we do it already. The development environment, which started now in Germany with the first consortia, will also grow, and there will be more development environments globally, maybe also here in Japan very soon. And then we come to the operating environment. Of course, operating environment needs to be orchestrated. It's done in the association. But we believe there are local adoptions that are necessary to be able to operate it for the local market. And this is why we are also here, to understand the requirements of the Japanese market and to talk about how can we operate Catena-X globally, but with the local impact. We had a tough year. Hagen and I and all the team from Catena-X worked now 1 year on the core, and then we were so happy to move to the Hannover Fair on our own booth with a huge premiere. We had a huge stage there. Like today, I'm really impressed as well what we have here in Japan. On the Hannover Fair, we had 500 participants, 12 speakers, lots of executive speakers, and we will have the special for today as well. We are very proud on that. We initiated some really important announcements. Some of you may know the Industrial Digital Twin Association or the Industrial Data Space Association. So there are already MOUs going on. We are working close together with the best of breed technologies that are in the market. We had our hundreds of members. We have demonstrations, many more demonstrations than Hagen just explained, because of course time is money and we cannot show everything. But we invite you to also check our website. There are many more applications you can find. We had lots of speakers, and of course all the partner booths on the Hannover Fair presented Catena-X. And for us, very important, we had such a huge international recognition. We came together with RRI, also on Hannover Fair, had an amazing session there with lots of countries. That's why we thought now it's time to go also into the markets and discuss locally in the market what we have to do. And one important focus: how do we onboard the small and medium companies? Very important. Yeah? And we have it on our website. I can't show it today, but we thought about that a lot, and it's very important that also locally will be adopted. Let's look at the roadmap, and then I have a special for you as well. The association started in 2021 with the foundation. Right now, we are in the middle of 2022, and we started the standardization process. The discussion is going on in the association, and we already have the first pilots out, and we are discussing that right now. Very soon, we start with the certification and the governance body, because everything that's standardized must be certified somehow. We have a huge white paper out there, and there will be another white paper. How do we operate? How do we decentralize, operate Catena-X? And we already have a beta environment for the members in the association. They can test and try with data they want to share there, the applications that are already built. The development environment at the moment creates the first releases, and the first phase is already short over. So we will roll out also our first software development kits, applications, and we are ready to validate with the users that will come to Catena-X. But where should the users come? And this is why we will kick off the first operation, the first company that will operate Catena-X end of this year, maybe beginning of next year, but it starts right now. And let me give you a little glimpse how this market entry will look like. You will have an application out there, a website out there. You will have the first set of onboarding services out there. You will have first applications on the market, and we will have also a business model in place. And this is the first operator that will be out there in the market and needs to be also adopted to local markets like Japan. And Hagen and I, we are very proud that our Minister of Economics also shares our ideas and explained Catena-X to a broad media. And that's why I want to give the word to our Minister for Economics, Mr. Heubach from Germany. Later, sorry. Nice. Okay, so let me come, before my minister is speaking, I will just explain you the unique value propositions that we want to deliver. Of course, we need to boost the digital readiness. This is what I explained many times now. We want to be ready to onboard the small and medium companies. We need trust. We need global trust. And this is very important. This is why we are also here. We have the library of digital twins. Not only, after all, to just trace the parts, many more digital twins. And all the digital twins need to be synchronized. We want to lift the active data chains. Join the active data chains, and a great governance is important for that. And of course, the software development kits to increase the development of further applications out there in an open ecosystem. Now, let us hear what our Minister for Economics has to say. Does it start?
Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, wie viele Einzelbestandteile hat ein Kabelstrang in einem Auto? Ein Kabelstrang? 5000. Und jetzt stellen Sie sich die gesamte Wertschöpfungskette vor, die beispielsweise zu einem Auto führt. Wie lang sie ist. Die Kette, sie wird gerade buchstäblich zu einem richtigen Gegenstand, den man ausmessen und erkennen muss. Alle diese Daten, die Lieferkette, sie fließen bis heute nicht zusammen. Es ist total schwierig, einen Überblick über die gesamte Kette der Rohstoffe und der Materialien zu erhalten. Dabei ist das so wichtig in einer Zeit wie dieser, wo Rohstoffe und Rohstoffketten brüchig, porös geworden sind, wir aber Rohstoffe effizienter nutzen müssen, auch um unsere Abhängigkeit beispielsweise von China zu reduzieren. Die Antwort darauf, sie lautet Catena-X. Catena-X ist das industriepolitische Leuchtturmprojekt für die Digitalisierung der Lieferketten. Mit Catena-X können wir die Frage beantworten, wie alles zusammenhängt. Dieser Überblick ist extrem wichtig. Ich nenne mal den CO2-Fußabdruck, der ja immer wichtiger wird, um zu erkennen, wie die Produkte eigentlich gefertigt sind. Über Catena-X können die Fußabdrücke der Einzelbestandteile automatisiert und dann zu einem Gesamtbild zusammengefügt werden. Ein Vorgang, der im Moment ohne diese zusammenhängenden Datensysteme hochkomplex eigentlich unmöglich ist. Dann Recycling. Über Catena-X erlangen wir endlich eine Übersicht über die Stoffkreisläufe. Gerade ist es so. Catena-X kann eine digitale Karteikarte des Autos zeigen, wo es herkommt, was verbaut ist, wer die Komponente gebaut hat, all das in Echtzeit. So wird dann schnell ersichtlich, ob die Platine eines Türschlosses beispielsweise beim Hersteller noch verwendet wird und beim Recycling von Altwagen an den Hersteller zur Wiederverwendung zurückgeschickt werden kann. Catena-X, das ist die Logik des Systems, vernetztes Denken, lebt davon, dass sich alle beteiligen. Und wenn nicht alle, dann doch möglichst viele. Es ist großartig und dafür ein herzliches Dankeschön, wie prominent die Botschafterinnen und Botschafter dieses Projekts hier vertreten sind. Ich möchte mich an dieser Stelle aber noch einmal ausdrücklich an die kleinen und mittelständischen Unternehmen wenden. Ohne ihre Beteiligung wird es nicht klappen. Sehen auch Sie die Vorteile dieses Systems, auch für Sie, auch für Ihr Unternehmen. Nur mit Ihnen leiten wir den notwendigen und nicht einfachen Kulturwandel in der Industrie ein. Eine gemeinsame Datennutzung über die Unternehmensgrenzen hinweg. Klar ist, Nutzen und Souveränität über die eigenen Daten, sie müssen gewährleistet bleiben. Wir wollen hier keine Werkspionage über Catena-X. Aber kleine und mittelständische Unternehmen müssen vertrauen können, dass ihr Know-how geschützt bleibt und gleichzeitig partizipieren können am Austausch von Daten, der dann zum Austausch von Wertstoffen, von Rohstoffen führt. Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, dafür ist Catena-X geradezu ein Vorbild. Es hat, davon konnte ich mich selbst überzeugen, auf der Hannover Messe eine große internationale Aufmerksamkeit erregt. Es ist ein globales Projekt geworden. Es ist kein nationales Projekt mehr. Das Ökosystem der gesamten Industrie muss jetzt schnell gestartet werden, aufbauend auf den Erfahrungen und den Ergebnissen von Catena-X. Ich bin fest davon überzeugt, dass Catena-X uns in der Digitalisierung voranbringen wird, aber eben auch bei dem Management unserer Rohstoffe. Ein Projekt von zentraler Bedeutung und Wichtigkeit. Machen Sie mit. Vielen, vielen Dank, dass wir so weit gekommen sind. Jetzt geht es an die nächsten Schritte. Danke an das Catena-X-Konsortium.
Let me shortly wrap up what we are doing here. We create the global network for data sharing, global economics, for data sharing and interoperability of applications. We have the mission to onboard all the small and medium companies out there in the market, building parts of the car. We want a multi-vendor ecosystem, many players who deliver value to the system. And last but not least, we call ourselves the fitness program for the automotive industry to tap into new value pools. Okay. Thank you very much. And maybe we switch over.
Hagen さん、クラウスさん、ありがとうございました。それではですね、ここからQ&A セッションに移りたいと思います。すでにですね、申し込みをされた方々からですね、いろいろ質問を送っていただきまして、事前に送っていただいた質問と、今日チャット欄にこれから入ってくると思いますけれども、そういうの質問、あと会場の皆さんからもですね、質問を受ける形で、残りの45分間過ごしていきたいと思っております。で、 送っていただいた質問結構な数になってまして、おそらく全部カバーするのは難しいかと思いますけれども、できるだけ、カバーできるように、やっていきたいと思いますので、よろしくお願いいたします。で、本日のですね、進め方なんですけど、いくつかですね、カテゴリーで分けてみました。こんな感じです。6つですかね。まずオーガニゼーション、組織の話、2番目としてビジネスモデル、で3番目で、クリエイティングトラステッドデータエクステンジインフラストラクチャー、アーキテクチャとかそういったところ、で4番目がユースケース、で5番目が他のイニシアティブだとか地域への広がりと、で6番目がレギュレーションということで、いくつかの質問をくくった形で進めていきたいと思います。今日のスライドのところでいくつかもう触れてあるような点もありますけれども、そこはこちらの方で、重なる部分があってもですね、質問をしていきたいと思いますので、よろしくお願いいたします。では最初ですね、オーガニゼーションということで、まずですね、繰り返しになっちゃうかもしれないんですけれども、やはり今回のそのカテナ X の
No problem.
大丈夫です。
Can hear you perfect. It's great.
はい、聞こえております。
カテナ X の取り組みというのは、その従来のですね、そのメーカーとサプライヤーの関係、トラディショナルな関係とやはり大きく違ったものを作り出そうとしているということが今回伝わってきましたけれども、その例えばトラストですとか、あるいはそのトラストベースのそのイコールポジションといいますか、そういうところがあるかと思いますけれども、もう一度その皆さんの方からその従来のトラディショナルな関係とは違ったそのカテナ X で目指している姿というのを3つほど何か挙げていただければと思いますが、いかがでしょうか。
I think, tackle this in a very way. I mean, when we the first discussions around Catena-X and how do we want to work together in the future in the automotive industry, of course, at the beginning there was also mistrust, because I mean we are in a business environment where we're also competing. We are competing from the automotive value chain. We're competing more and more also from the software perspective. We're competing for automation. So this is always a little bit, in the middle of the discussion at the beginning. However, and this also needs to be clearly said, when we were in the deep crisis of the COVID impact, when we saw the first signs from the Ukraine war, one thing is really important to recognize. The challenge what we have in the automotive industry ahead of us are way, way more important and bigger than the individual goals and the individual, I would say, business relations and interests of the companies. If we truly want to make a better world for the automotive industry by reusing the components what we're using, recycling the plastics, for example, what are in the cars, we also need to work and collaborate on a different way as we do from a supplier, from an OEM, and from a raw material company side. So giving up, this personal interest was, of course, also a leap of faith. You heard it at the beginning in our vision movie. We need to take this leap of faith in the automotive industry. If we cannot give up our boundaries, we all will lose. We will all lose and leave our planet in a worse place as it is before from a sustainability perspective. And we will face more and more the challenges about resilience. The next raw material or component shortage is all around already in the corner. And if we don't have mechanisms, processes, and solutions in place who can address that, then there is nothing. So business relationships between OEMs, suppliers, first-tier suppliers, end-tier suppliers are dramatically changing. We see that clearly every day, that companies in that value chain are working together and are collaborating together in a different way. And one central component in this whole change transformation process is creating these win-win situations. Think about it. I'm always talking about if you don't share data, I don't share data. Creating these win-win situations means not only the OEM can request the data from a supplier, also the supplier can request the data from an OEM, because there are a lot of valuable data on both sides. And only if both sides share, there will be win-win situations from both sides. So this will change dramatically the way how it interacted from an organizational point of view.
それは、例えばなんていうんですかね、トラディショナルなやり方で今の例えば、カーボンフットプリントとかサーキュラーエコノミーに取り組むっていうのを今までのやり方でやるよりも、カテナ X のような、トラステッドベースで、ディストリビューテッドでやっていく方が、コストがなんていうかな、トータルのコストが、ディストリビュートされるというか、安く上がるというような考え方もあるということですか。
This is a great understanding. And we found out that if you really want to calculate the product carbon footprint, then you need an incentive for everyone to inject the right data. Because what is the product carbon footprint? The product carbon footprint is a sum of many information coming from machines in the production, coming from the supply chain itself, coming from the raw materials that was taken out of the soil. So the product carbon footprint is measured in different layers. And imagine the complexity to calculate such a product carbon footprint. And therefore we need a trust layer that is really capable of checking if everybody is injecting the data in the right way. And then we can start managing it. Someone said, what you can't measure, you can't manage, right? So this is the first thing we want to do. And this needs to be transparent and open and not be corruptible by any party. So this is very important when it comes to the product carbon footprint. And this is why Catena-X is open and based on data sovereignty.
ありがとうございます。じゃあ次の質問に移りたいと思います。SME 中小企業に関する質問なんですが、やはり中小企業にとってはリソースをそんなに十分に持っているわけではないということが非常に課題だと思ってますけれども、こういう中小企業の方々がカテナ X に入っていくためにどんななんていうんですか、アプローチといいますか、どんな工夫を皆さんされてるんでしょうか。
So, the interaction and the integration of small and medium enterprises was one of the key and core principles of Catena-X when we founded it. Sometimes we even speak about a must-win battle, because if we cannot assure that small and medium-sized enterprises can integrate smoothly, easily and timely into Catena-X, we cannot build the value chain. Let's be honest, we have a lot of big companies in the automotive industry, but the backbone of the automotive industry as well is made from small and medium-sized companies. It's not only in Europe the case, it's also the case in the US, and I hope it's also the case, of course, here in Japan. So integrating small and medium-sized companies was always at the beginning one of our mission-critical things where we said this is our contribution to the entire industry. So Catena-X is working especially from a technology perspective, but also from a business process and onboarding perspective on tools, services, and technology components to deliver them in a very easy and in a very light way to the middle segment or the small and medium-sized companies. On the one hand side, we always had our definition of saying it should be that easy to connect to Catena-X that you are able to switch on in 6 to 8 weeks. And now we know, of course, small, medium-sized companies, hey, they are far away also from a digital perspective and digital readiness. If you look, for example, on a study on the Bitkom, we realized only 10%, especially for the small and medium-sized companies, are ready to share data. So what we actually doing, especially in the development consortia, we providing the tools, the services, and the very lightweight integration points to Catena-X. And it really can start only with an Excel upload. You can upload your Excel files into Catena-X or you're already connected into that one. So dealing with a very lightweight and easy mechanisms to connect is one of the incentives what we're giving there. Second, from a governmental and also from a governance perspective, for the first Kickstarter consortia and the Kickstarter program, we will establish an incentive program from the German government which incentivizes small and medium-sized companies to join Catena-X. So at the end, small and medium-sized companies can request also incentives from the government to join Catena-X, to be smoothly integrated, to run and also interact very quickly.
ありがとうございます。先ほどですね、ちょっとCatena-Xのデモのスクリーンがあったかと思います。つまりCatena-Xは何らかのその IT のインフラストラクチャーを持っているというふうに理解をしたんですけれども、このなんていうんですかね、ビジネスモデルのちょっと質問になっていくんですが、こういったコストはですね、一体どういうふうに、例えばそのCatena-Xの会員の、レジストレーションフィーというか、あるいはユーザーが使うたんびにお金を払うだとか、そういう形でインフラストラクチャーをメンテンしているんでしょうか。
Of course, the cost of the infrastructure, when I get the information right, must be covered somehow. But let me start differently, because we don't want any kind of lock-in effect to a platform business where you have to pay in the end to be part of it. So this is not the intention. We want, of course, to be transparent about the cost for the transaction that we are providing. But of course, the cloud business itself is always part of the supplier or of the OEM. Yeah? So you need to have a fee for operating the shared services. And this fee depends also very much on the use case. So we expect for different use cases, different business models. There could also be applications based on Catena-X provided free of charge if the business model is only giving profit to the big OEMs. So it could be that the business model is completely covered by some companies. Other business models, depending on can I make use of the data, like Hagen said before, do I have something, do I get data back, then I have to pay. So discussing about the business model is always a matter of use case, first of all, and also depending on what is the operator, and I described the decentralized operating system, really doing. So is it a large integrated operator, or is it a very narrow one? And this will also show different business models. So there's not one business model. It's depending on the use case and also depending on how integrated you look at it from an operator side.
そういったビジネスモデルベースのなんていうんですかね、コストストラクチャーって言いますか、フィーと言いますか、そういうのはいずれこう明らかになってくるものなんでしょうか。
Yeah, I mean, two things which are already clear. If you think back at the technology stack, there will be some kind of fee to connect to Catena-X. Very sure, because someone needs to operate this and someone needs to maintain. But from our perspective, this is not the clear maximum monetization revenue stream, because that's the baseline, how we also want to interact and exchange the data. What will be another revenue or monetization stream is, of course, on the business applications and the network applications, how the use cases are addressed and how the use cases are realized. And as we explained before, this is on a multiple applications or provider strategy, which means there will be applications from big IT companies which are very sophisticated and very deep integrated. And of course, they will have a price tag because we deliver value with that one and can be realized. But there will be always also a set of lightweight applications for very easy to connect and very easy to consume. Sometimes we will even find on this application layer some open source components where you say that's very easy to use and to applicate. The most important thing is each user of Catena-X has the full choice and the full transparency what to use and how to use, and there will be no lock-in effect, also from a commercial perspective. It's very important from our side to make this statement here that we don't want to lock in any one of the Catena-X users to one IT vendor, to one platform.
ありがとうございます。次にですね、そのクリエイテッドトラスデータエクスチェンジインフラストラクチャー、アーキテクチャに関する質問をしていきたいと思います。ですね、先ほどのスライドの中でWeb3 についてのちょっと記述があったというふうに理解しています。でこれはデータ主権、皆さんのおっしゃっているデータソベルニティとの関係でそのコンセプト的に同じだよということで書かれているんでしょうか。それとももっと例えばブロックチェーンを使っていくだとか、そういうテクニカルなところも意味しているんでしょうか。
So let me answer it a little bit different, because technology is only there to serve a certain use case. So if we hear blockchain, in our minds, usually there's a certain film going on, and we all see lots of different charts going up and down very fast. So it's very important for us that we don't want to be recognized as now it's the new blockchain something. So Web3 is on the slides because we look at technology making data sovereignty possible very open, very open. The industrial data space blueprint that we are using for the Eclipse data space connector itself is not using blockchain right now. So right now, the technology, which we will also launch by end of this year, as we've shown, will not imply blockchain. Nevertheless, some use cases may also imply blockchain-based security trust layers. So it's a matter of use case where you use what technology. And the shared services stack, I think it was on Hagen's slide, the open source stacks, they don't imply at the moment Web3 and blockchain technology, but it's on our radar. We look at it, and we also ready to let's say take it into account if it's necessary. Yeah? And there might be a different way of looking at it here in Japan. Could be. Then, of course, there's enough room to develop concepts for Catena-X based on blockchain, but so far not.
つまりその、Web3 というのはCatena-Xの中ではいわゆるデータ主権、データソベリニティのプリンシプルということで理解をしていくということで、理解しました。
Yeah, as a baseline, definitely. I mean, if you always want to look at the core services and technology components, we always recommend to reference yourself to the reference architecture of the International Data Space Association. Why? Because the core federated services, what we call them, is exactly described there. We need, for example, a brokerage service. We need an identity service. We need a clearinghouse. Yeah? And of course, if you would define these services now as Web3 technology, that's exactly then what we implement and what we will use. Yeah? But if you're looking for, in case of how to monetize on Web3, we also had discussions, or there are researches going on regarding tokenization. So these are all methodologies which are still under discussion and on research. We also have a clear desire to make the system first working and going, and step by step we can elevate. We can elevate more to blockchain technology, we can elevate to tokenization, more incentivization, Web3 technologies will enhance. So this is a process which comes step by step.
ありがとうございます。次の質問はですね、スライドの中で、How Catena-X works っていうスライドがあったと思うんですが、それちょっと出していただくことはできますかね。あのスライドの中には、真ん中にCatena-Xがあって、いろんなステークホルダーが周りにあったかと思います。で、
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like our shared services in the middle, and the supply chain under it, and on top the providers of applications.
はいはい。で、例えばですね、それぞれの、ステークホルダーが EDC、Eclipse データコネクタでつながってますと。この次のスライドですかね。Next slide.
One first, I think. One further.
Oops. Yes. はい。でこれで、いろんなステークホルダーが EDC を介してつながっていて、トラストをそこで担保確立してコミュニケーションしているという絵だと思うんですけれども、上の方に、例えば SAP さんとかシーメンスさんとかが書いてあります。で今後もっと、カンパニー ABC ってどんどんいろんなものをいろんな人たちが出てくると思うんですけれども、それがCatena-Xにつないでいく時というのは、皆さんこのCatena-Xの会員にならなきゃいけないんでしょうか。ちょっとそこのすごく簡単なところですけど教えていただければ。
That's a good one. Sometimes misunderstood. So you don't have to become a member of the association to provide applications. the association provides the standards, we're discussing the standards, and there we decide about the governance model. If you just want to bring your application to the market, this happens with the operating companies that will be there, the decentralized operating system, and there you can use the shared services and bring your application to the market. So the sales mechanism behind it and all the business mechanism are not connected with the association.
なるほど。そうすると、それぞれの会社がCatena-Xの会員になる必要はないけれども、少なくとも EDC をちゃんと実装していくということが必要になるということでしょうか。
That's an important one, actually. Why? Because not being a member of Catena-X doesn't mean you need to play on the rules of Catena-X. And the association by itself, besides of standardization, is driving and handling the certification. So which means each solution provider, each service provider in the upper space needs to be Catena-X certified. Why? Because we need to guarantee that these applications are fully trust, secure, and interoperable. So which means if there is a solution or an IT or a platform provider who tries to compromise the basic rules of data sovereignty, maybe tries to sneak out the data or whatever, it will not become certified from Catena-X. This is our commitment to the end users of saying, if you choose an application which is listed in the Catena-X store, it's certified 100% from our side. And this is not only for application providers, it's also for operations, by the way.
今Catena-X からサーティファイされるというお話ありましたけど、それは EDC の話ではなくて別のサーティフィケーションという意味なんでしょうか。
No, the EDC is the core component, the technology, which will be certified, and we look at the whole stack, what will be offered. But there will be like requirements. And the certification process is not, will not be the certification process as we know it for hardware, for example. It will be certification must be more flexible, and we are working on it in the association. And my wish, or if I might have a wish, would be that we have many companies coming to the association to exactly work on that problem together with us, because the bigger we are, the more broad we are, the more balanced discussions we have, the better will be the certification process, and afterwards the orchestration of our ecosystem. This is why we invite also, of course, Japanese OEMs, Tier 1, Tier X, plus IT suppliers to come to the association.
なるほど、ありがとうございます。今お話ししたのはこのCatena-Xの上の方にあるいろんな会社のアプリケーションでしたけれども、Catena-Xの中では先ほど10ユースケース、10個のユースケースという話がありました。それは今のオレンジのCatena-Xのボックスの中でインプリとか実現されるというふうに考えればよろしいんでしょうか。
No, not singularity. I mean, the orange box provides the baseline services to have a trusted, secure, and interoperable data exchange. So if we're talking about the CO2 footprint tracking case, you only can assemble actually the full CO2 footprint if you connect all the different players along the value chain. So all the different players must have a trusted handshake to share their CO2 footprint from A to B to C and all the way up to the OEM or even to the recycler. The calculation and also maybe how you make, for example, visible how these different CO2 footprints will be shared, this is on part of the business applications. So if you would ask me, okay, who is providing the use cases? It's a mixture of baseline services for the technology and the data sharing, and on top, the business application which follows the process. Another example, if we're talking about the use case of quality collaboration, complaint handling management is a clear business process. It will never be part of the orange box. Complaint handling management and defects can be shared through a network, and also countermeasurements will be always part of quality management tools and quality management applications.
ありがとうございます。ユースケースに関していくつかの質問があるんですけれども、最初に10ユースケースという話がありました。でこれが決まってきたその背景といいますか、あるいは今後 他にもユースケースが加わっていくと思いますけど、そこの中でのそのプライオリティというのは一体どういうところでディシジョンされていくんでしょうか。
So we share this question. The use cases you see here were, as Hagen said in his presentation, they came up right from the beginning. It is part of the DNA of Catena-X. We didn't want to first develop a platform or something. We wanted to work on use cases. So those use cases were picked out together with the industry, coming as a requirement from the car manufacturers, from the tier ones, and also there were ideas from small and medium companies and outfitter ideas to come up with those use cases. And during our collaboration, and this is what we mean with collaboration and trust, we always think about what is the most important. And that's why we say now we have the foundation, we see regulation coming up for CO2 carbon footprints, we see that the battery passport, for example, is a topic, so this could also be a use case here. And so we decide on the use cases. Yeah? And you see some of the use cases, we didn't talk too much about manufacturing as a service called MaaS or modular production or online control and simulation. Those use cases are very much related with the production itself. And imagine if you want to share data for your production over the supply chain. There we go also deep into the OT, into the operational IT of the production, and then it becomes more and more complex. And so we started with the most compelling events. We have to trace the parts, to calculate the CO2 footprint, to build the trust. And on top, we already thought through more complex use cases like manufacturing as a service, integrating, for example, additive manufacturing into the supply chain, flexible, and being able to offer all the way from the demand of an OEM to find the right partner who can print the part in 3D and then deliver it. And this is all also possible using our shared, our core together with the application we call, for example, MaaS. Yeah. You want to add something? Because
ありがとうございます。この例えば10個のユースケースですけど、これはCatena-Xの中に10個のチームがあって、それぞれがユースケースの詳しいことを検討しているということでしょうか。
Yeah, we work on multiple layers. First of all, I mean, we're working on an association level, which is also, of course, organized in work groups, technical committees, and special teams. And of course, use cases are also a big part of it. Starts, for example, with the selection at the beginning. As we said, 10 is not the end. There will be more. Goes further until beta testing. For example, in the association, there's a broad community where you can apply for beta tests when the use cases are ready. So that's the first level. The second level, of course, then is in the development consortia, which is, yes, organized around use cases. So there is a cross-development team, for example, for parts traceability or for CO2 footprint tracking, or let's say for the technical components which are required for digital twin. So dedicated teams are currently working into that one. And to give you also a little bit of feeling how serious we are from a development perspective, we are talking about a development consortia project which is currently deployed more than 650 project members from 28 companies who are working actively on these use cases and the technology components. And the remarkable thing, as always, as we said, it's on a balanced level. It's representatives from the industry, representatives from the IT side, researching companies to define the best solution for these use cases from a business perspective, but also from an IT perspective.
ありがとうございます。これまでいろいろご説明いただいて、いろんなユースケースだとか、いろんな地域だとか、いろんなステークホルダーが集まって、データのエクスチェンジができる、仕組みを作ろうとしているということが理解できてきたんですけれども、そこで使われるそのデータの意味っていうんですかね、その言葉といいますか、そこがちゃんと通じるようになってないと非常にその難しい。A 社さんの在庫 インベントリーっていう意味は B 社さんの在庫ってインベントリーと違う意味かもしれないというようなそういう難しさがあると思うんですけど、そこはやっぱり皆さんで取り組んでいるということでしょうか。
Yeah, I think this is the core as well. So without speaking to each other, being able to translate, thanks to our translation team here, we can have this amazing conference. This is the same in Catena-X. So we are working on the registries, on the semantic models behind it, and we use what is already available on the market as far as possible. For example, the Industrial Digital Twin Association, they provide the asset administration shell already, but we still believe there are many more languages to add to our system. I can imagine that here in Japan there are lots of different languages inside the automotive society. So this is why also we need the requirements. And this is where we work together. So I would say the standardization, what language do we understand and how it's spoken, is done in the association right now. Technology-wise, it's on the stack. And the EDC will understand different languages. So this is the core, basically, when it comes to Catena-X.
ありがとうございます。ですね、次はコネクション・ウィズ・アザー・イニシアティブ、あるいは他の、リージョン、地域ということで、お話を伺いたいんですが、皆さんのご説明の中で、カテナ X っていうのは別にドイツだけじゃない、ヨーロッパだけじゃない、グローバルだということでおっしゃっていました。で、同時にすみません、同時にですね、地域ごとにレギュレーションといいますか、リクエアメントが違うというような、そういった状況が、あろうかと思いますけれども、そういった中で、どういった形でその他の地域の人たちのインボルメントというか参加を呼びかけていくことになるんでしょうか。
Yeah, that's a very good question, and especially also why we said from an internationalization perspective, it's really important to be fully transparent. On the one hand side, Catena-X works very closely with industry organizations all around the world for setting the tight integrations for existing processes and initiatives. I mean, this starts, for example, from the European side, what we are doing with Gaia-X, with the IDTA, with IDSA, and organizations like that, to really be engaged very, very closely. That's the first thing. Second thing, from an internationalization perspective, we have defined a concept, and the concept is just now in the first rollouts, how we're going to establish so-called Catena-X hubs all around the world. First hub is currently growing in Europe, where we said there are different set of players and different set of industry organizations which needs to be involved. The German VDA, of course, from an automotive perspective, but also from a French or the other players, really big to include in them one. And similar concepts and similar roles we will have, for example, in other regions. We have currently in discussions regarding US rollout. It's also, of course, a desire and also one of our wishes to roll out to Japan. But this is a matter how we organize, for example, now a Japanese hub for Catena-X. The most important thing is the hub concept is clearly based also on a partnership in eye level. Once again, Catena-X is not a German nor a European dominated initiative. If there is a Catena-X hub in Japan, it will be governed and it will also be handled from the Japan side. So working on the eye level and working also here with the regional initiatives and industry representations is very important for us. We are here to set the transparency. We are here to just tell the best practices how we did it, for example, in Europe, and adapting and rolling out now for Japan. This is one of the things what we intend to do.
はい、ありがとうございます。レギュレーションの関係でちょっともう一つ質問があります。バッテリーパスポート、バッテリーの規制に関してですね、欧州の方ではバッテリー規制っていうのがあって日本の産業界も注目していると思うんですけれども、これはカテナ X の中でもそのワーキンググループの中でもこういうアプローチどうやって対応していくかっていうのは議論されているんでしょうか。
Yes, we have initiated the working group, and the battery passport itself is also developed in different other environments right now. That's why we look at the battery passport from a holistic perspective. So we not believe that Catena-X now solves all the problems, because it's very new and we all have to understand what needs to be done to really do the battery passport. But Catena-X, again, provides the stable and trustful network, and then we will see what kind of applications will make use of it to really create, in the end, the battery passport. So regulation is sometimes very easy. You just make a law and that's it, right? We are providing the technology that is open enough to be flexible adopting to these regulations. And then we see best of breed, what is going on with the applications, and maybe also we will be so flexible to bridge between the country regulations, because this is also important. There might be different regulation for Japanese market, complete different regulation for Chinese market, and then for European market. But the technology must be as flexible as possible. And then the applications themselves, they will solve the problem of do I meet the law or not? So this is a try, maybe if you have another answer to that. But the battery passport itself is, from my perspective, in the end, it will be an application that can be used and of course also provided by several application provider.
そうするとそのバッテリーパスポートに関しても、どういうアプローチがあり得るかというところの検討からまだ始まっていく。だからもうしばらく結構時間がかかって、検討されていくというそういう感じなんでしょうか。
Yes, it takes time, but also pressure is high. So I don't have the results now of the first working group, but we are also, like I said, very much working together with the Global Battery Alliance, looking what there's going on. We are also working with other like close corporations like the World Business Council for Sustainability, and so we are looking across the border of Catena-X, and then we see what's possible.
ありがとうございます。ハーゲンさん何かありますか？大丈夫です。はい。ですね、ちょっと時間も押してきましたので、ここでちょっと会場の皆さんからご質問がもしあればですね、受け付けたいと思いますが、いかがでしょうか。今会場に20名、ちょっとぐらいの方々いらしていただいてますが、どなたかご質問があればお願いいたします。
NTT の坂井野です。Catena-X を国際展開していくにあたって、日本の企業、RRI の団体に期待することがあれば教えてください。
No, absolutely. I mean, what we discussed before and said, we're here to set transparency and show a way how it could work. I mean, everything what we have established so far with Catena-X is far beyond what we could imagine 1.5 years ago. And trust me, there were, of course, also a lot of people when we started Catena-X in Europe, they said, this will never work. It's too complex, it's too big, too many different players, too many different companies, and so on and so forth. I think from an internationalization perspective, we're currently in a phase of getting this trust on forming the community. What would be a request and also a desire from us to Japanese companies, start the discussion now. I'm sure you have the same challenges around resilience, transparency, sustainability. Start the discussions with your industry peers. They say, is there a potential to form such a community, to establish a system also from a regional perspective, where we can work together from an industry perspective, OEM to first tier to end tier to small and medium-sized companies, but also from IT tech provider to IT tech provider to OT. We need to form this community and get the discussions going and thinking about, is there a way to use? And if we come to the conclusion here that components of Catena-X might help and be useful for it, yes, we are here to help to establish a Catena-X hub in the region, and would be really, engaged of saying, forming the structures. I think the concept is there. And we also had nice exchange already this week with multiple companies around what could work and how we can establish that one. So start the discussion. We are in a pre-evaluation phase. And of course, as of now, we discussed it before, I think the localization part is very important. We don't know the local specifics which are relevant for a data exchange in Japan. This is something what needs to come from your community. So defining already what is necessary to fill the delta, this is, I think, something what we can tackle now.
ありがとうございました。
はい、ありがとうございます。他に、会場からあとお二方、はい。
お話ありがとうございます。経済産業省の佐藤と申します。2点ありまして、1つ目、カーボンフットプリントの例がありました。で、カーボンフットプリントを計算していくには、車あるいはバッテリーの部品、それぞれに関する CO2 というのを足していく必要があると思います。そのためには、すべての部品を、アイデンティフィケーション特定をし、同一の体系の下で管理をして計算をしていくことが必要になります。他方で、それぞれの企業というのは、個々の企業の中で体系だった部品の管理というところを行っているというのが、今の現状なのではないかというふうに思います。そういう中で、今参加しているすべての企業が同じ体系の下で部品、あるいは材料を管理していく、同じ体系の下で ID を振っていくことが可能なのか、可能だとすれば、それはどういうふうにやるのかといったことが一つ目の質問です。2つ目の質問は認証に関することです。で、Catena-Xに参加する企業というのは、本当に、一定の認証を受けなければいけないということだと思うんですけど、それは中小企業を含むすべての企業に対して求められることなのかどうか、これが、2点目の質問になります。よろしくお願いします。
Amazing question. Thank you very much. We had the same question not long ago, and we had a working group in our association to solve this problem. And lately they came up with the rule book, a PCF rule book. And we share this rule book also with the World Business Council for Social Development, VBCSD. There, I think, there's a lot of progress also to share the information, how we really need to measure, what needs to be done during the whole supply chain. So this is something where we look what's going on out there. We have our own rule book, and then we will agree on this rule book, and then let's say, okay, this is how we want to calculate. Of course, this needs to be then discussed with governmental organizations, yeah, because ultimately the carbon footprint measures needs to be also coming from the regulation, right? But we have this rule book, and then, of course, applications will be used to receive the information, to store the information in the right manner, and then to manage the product carbon footprint. This is the first answer to your first question, a little bit. I hope it fits there. But the second question is also, of course, very interesting. How do we certify now that the product carbon footprint, if I get it right, is then calculated in the right way? So first of all, Catena-X is certifying the technology that is used. We are not certifying the product carbon footprint then itself. The product carbon footprint has to be calculated by each company with the regulations that we give inside the applications. Then, of course, you will have certifying companies checking is the product carbon footprint calculated in the right way, and therefore we need also an environment of certifiers who can help us. There are the classic companies doing that. Then checking is it done in the right way. So we will not do it by ourselves. We will then certify certifiers who will do this job. Is it okay? So you can just get it in dialogue as well.
はい、ありがとうございます。そうですね、その認証というところで、テクノロジーの認証と組織の認証とあるかと思いますので、今そのテクノロジーごとに認証していくという話があったかと思うんですけど、企業ごとにも認証が必要だということ理解で正しいでしょうか。
No, I would really clarify this here. First of all, Catena-X, we provide the system to fulfill on a product carbon footprint in a secure, safely interoperable manner. And therefore we always said the technology components which are used need to be certified. So that every time two companies agree on, hey, we're going to share data for the product carbon footprint, the technology used needs to be certified. So if you think about from a technology perspective, does a small and medium-sized company be certified? No, not in the case directly, but it's indirectly because they're using, remember, the same EDC connectors, the components for Catena-X. And in that case, they're going to be indirectly certified. So from a pure business perspective, for end users, there is no certification plan. For technology, yes.
ありがとうございます。テクノロジーとしての認証はされるけれども、すべての中小企業が認証を受けなければいけないという体系になっているわけではないということですね。よくわかりました。ありがとうございます。
はい、では後ろの方ですね。水上さんですかね。
RRI の水上と申します。今日貴重な講演ありがとうございました。中小企業ということで、日本の場合は人数が非常に少ない、例えば3人とか5人ぐらいの企業も入ってきています。で、そういう方々を巻き込んでいくことも含めて大きく描いていくと、多分教育みたいなことが非常に重要な、プログラムの中に入ってくるんじゃないかなと。で、そういうようなことの議論っていうのは、Catena-X の今の現状で何かなされていることがあればちょっと触れていただければと思います。
That's a great question because we had just discussed the same. So now it's another shared burden, right? Because it's not only Catena-X that has to be taught to the small companies. There are lots of digitalization initiatives. And there's also things planned to build like a digital path that SME can have to follow, and then we will have like the learning path, and then we will provide that. But this is a different topic. Could be named Transfer X, or to transfer in the small and medium area, and combine it with different other things. So this is in the planning, but this is part of the onboarding of small and medium companies, and we want to get as many as synergies with other initiatives as possible to cover this problem. Because otherwise, I think there will be a huge pressure is on the small, on the, like you said, 2 to 5 people-sized companies. Yeah, so they need a structured plan, and we expect learning platforms to grow, and we will push that as well. And we of course also need an enablement for the multipliers. For example, the small and medium company that you mentioned will use the IT provider around the corner. They are working together for ages. And this small, again, IT provider then helps the small and medium company to work, right? So we need to teach first the IT provider to give the right answers to his customer. And this is what we call an ecosystem of onboarding partners, consulting companies, IT companies. Yeah? This is a huge topic, part of Catena-X, but even larger.
はい、ありがとうございます。よろしいでしょうか。
ありがとうございます。Catena-X 自身が周りのいろんな活動とエコシステムになっているということをよく、理解しました。ありがとうございました。
はい、ありがとうございます。残念ながらもうちょっと時間になってしまいましたので、まだご質問あると思いますけれども、今日はここら辺で締めさせていただきたいと思います。今日いろいろお話しいただきましてですね、欧州で起きているCatena-Xの状況を理解する、もしくは我々が日本でどういうふうに捉えて今後アクションを考えていくかのヒントになればよろしいかなと思っております。でですね、ここで聴講された方々にちょっとお願いがございます。後日ですね、皆様にアンケートのお願いを送らさせていただきますので、ぜひ、フィードバックをお願いしたいなと思います。で、アンケートをお答えいただいた方にはですね、最後のページのところにですね、今日のスライドをダウンロードできるような形にしておきたいと思いますので、ぜひフィードバックの方ご協力お願いいただければと思います。最後にですね、本日非常に有効な貴重なお話をしていただきましたハーゲンさん、クラウスさんに感謝の拍手で本日のセミナーを終わりたいと思います。皆様どうもありがとうございました。
Arigato gozaimasu.